You want to see some angry Americans? Go to Tennessee and talk to workers who are out of a job about ads like this one that encourage manufacturers to close shop in the U.S. and relocate in Central America. Down there, the ad says, you can get workers to replace Americans for 57 cents an hour. What really angered them was that the ad, cutting the ground out from under them, was paid for by the United States government.
No, it's not George M. Cohan. No, it is not Jimmy Cagney playing George M. Cohan. It is a political relic, a throwback to a time of populist politicians who succeeded with street smarts and knowing which strings to pull. Billy Bulger almost defines Boston Irish.
His name is Michael Coons, a 13-year-old with AIDS. He got the disease from a very expensive medication made from blood. So did thousands of other hemophiliacs. And their families are all going broke trying to keep them from, on the one hand, bleeding to death, and on the other, dying of AIDS.
His AIDS expenses alone, I'd say somewhere between $45,000 and $50,000 just this last month.
I'm Mike Wallace.
I'm Morley Safer.
I'm Ed Bradley.
I'm Steve Croft.
I'm Leslie Stahl. Those stories and Andy Rooney tonight on 60 Minutes.
I saw those lights, and even though I was only 5, I knew something terrible had happened. First, I saw the cars. They were, I don't know, mangled. My father told me not to look, but I had to. I remember seeing this little boy. We made eye contact. I could see the fear in his eyes. It's something I'll never forget. No, I don't drive a Mercedes to impress my friends.
Green. Who wouldn't envy green? Such a versatile color. Summer, winter, indoors or out, green's a natural. And nobody does green like Dockers.
Is this seat taken?
No, please.
So that's what you're eating? Too bad.
This is a whole grain cereal.
Yes, with sugar and preservatives.
Oh, and I suppose that you're Kellogg.
Kellogg's Nutri-Grain. It's made with pure whole grain.
Oh, really?
It's the only whole grain cereal without sugar or preservatives added.
The only one? I didn't know.
I know.
So what else should I know?
You have milk on your chin?
Kellogg's Nutri-Grain, as good as whole grain gets.
It comes as no surprise that the unemployment figures in the United States, nearly 10 million at last count, are higher than anyone wants them to be. What may come as a surprise, though, is that the United States government, of all people, is promoting the export of some of the very jobs that workers in this country depend on for their livelihood. The textile and apparel industry is a case in point. The U.S. is losing an average of 2,000 textile and apparel jobs a month, 500,000 in the past 10 years. Several 100,000 of them lost to Central America and the Caribbean, where unskilled workers, mainly women, work for about 1/10 of what their counterparts in the U.S. make. Besides low wages, local taxes are non-existent. But businessmen also come because the United States government gives them low-interest loans, subsidizes worker training programs, and offers tax breaks they can't get in the U.S. For instance, U.S. government loans help start up this factory in El Salvador. The plant employs Salvadorans who now turn out the same sportswear that a year ago was made by American workers at the company's plant in Decaturville, Tennessee, a plant that's now closed down. These are kind of pants that...
We made those pants like that, shorts, skirts, jackets.
No problem.
No problem.
When you look at this ad that says... We showed these former employees an ad aimed at U.S. clothing manufacturers, which reads, Rosa Martinez produces apparel for U.S. markets on her sewing machine in El Salvador. You can hire her for 57 cents an hour. What would be your reaction if I told you that this is advertising for your business to go to El Salvador, where someone will make 57 cents an hour, and that this ad was in effect paid for by the U.S. government?
It makes me mad. I mean, me sitting here without a job, and they got nothing to do, and then they take these away. I mean, and I put 29 years of my life in down there, and I'm 51 a year of age as of now, and can't find work. I mean, it's enough to make anybody mad.
I'm not lacking in compassion for the workers.
James Michael is Deputy Director of AID, the United States Agency for International Development, the agency which put up the money for the Rosa Martinez ad that angered those unemployed workers in Tennessee. Let me ask you, with nearly 10 million people unemployed in this country, with 1 in 10 people in this country on food stamps, do you think that it is in our interest to create jobs in Central America through U.S. taxpayer money?
I think that there are not a fixed number of jobs in the world. I think that growth in Latin America creates jobs in the United States.
The richer the Central American countries get, Michael says, the more they'll buy from us.
This year, U.S. exports to Central America will be about $5.8 billion. At 20,000 jobs for every $1 billion in exports, that's over 100,000 U.S. jobs.
But Ray Marshall, who was Secretary of Labor in Jimmy Carter's cabinet and now teaches at the University of Texas, says there just isn't enough purchasing power in Central America to offset the loss of American jobs.
They're supposed to be to our benefit, because now these workers will have some jobs and they can buy things from us. Well, if they're being paid very low wages, subsistence level wages, they're not going to buy much from us.
Bernard Lax, a sweater manufacturer in Los Angeles, has to compete with producers who've moved to Central America. He says our government is encouraging development there at the cost of American jobs. How do you react when you hear that the U.S. government is providing, in effect, subsidies to apparel firms to move to Central America?
I'm very angry about it, because to me it shows that they're turning their back on the American worker. They're turning their back. They keep using the argument that Americans don't really want these jobs, but yet they never give Americans the opportunity to even have these jobs.
At our request, Lax went to the State Department to ask what AID could do for him if he were to shut down in Los Angeles and move to Honduras. They put him in touch with Honduran promoters who told him about a tax provision called 936, which is a bonanza for U.S. businessmen because they're able to get low-cost loans if they move to Central America. Is it a good deal, this 936 money?
It's a great deal.
Financially?
It's a great deal.
Why?
Well, you're paying, first of all, the cost of the financing is almost non-existent. The rate that you borrow at is less than, generally 2 basis points less than prime. And so the cost of your financing is almost negligible. I mean, it's almost as if someone's giving you the money to start a business.
This is the worst possible time to be exporting American jobs down here.
In El Salvador, we talked to Congressman George Brown, a California Democrat. We were standing outside of Fusades, a Salvadoran business promotion agency. AID gives Fusades more than 90% of its budget. Last year, in an AID project paper, the agency urged Fusades to target American companies in an effort to get them to come to El Salvador.
They have an aggressive program of recruiting American industry to relocate down in El Salvador. It's directly being subsidized by the American taxpayer, using that money to bring jobs from American companies down here.
Is that what's happening? Not according to AID's James Michael, who insists his agency is not responsible for American businesses moving overseas.
Well, and my assumption is that somebody moves overseas because they can't be competitive for a particular segment of their operation.
The argument here, Mr. Michael, is that's fine. If somebody wants to move overseas, this is the free world. Yeah. You can move to wherever you want to. But the United States taxpayer doesn't have to support, through subsidies, your move to Central America when you're going to close down a plant in Tennessee and give jobs to workers in Central America.
Oh, I think that's really a distortion of what we're doing.
We decided to see for ourselves with a hidden camera what AID is doing in Central America. So we sent businessman Lou Thaler, union researcher Charles Kernigan, and 60 Minutes producer David Gelber to Honduras and El Salvador. They posed as executives of a fictitious Miami-based company we called New Age Textiles. We told our Honduran hosts, whose salaries are paid in part by AID, that we were thinking about moving, even though it would mean laying off our workforce in Miami. Our producer, David Gelber, posing as an executive of the company, talked by phone to Scott Taylor, AID's official representative in Honduras. Since Taylor is an American, we thought he'd be reluctant to talk us into doing something which might put other Americans out of work. We were wrong.
We have to be sure that we're going to get the kind of reliability and efficiency in Honduras or Salvador that we get in Miami now.
Right.
And you feel that that's possible?
Well, you know, I do. U.S. firms that have come down here are very happy about that decision.
You're satisfied that we can approximate the reliability that we've come to expect in Miami?
I think you'd probably find that you could surpass it.
Taylor's boss is James Michael. At no point did he ever ask what the impact of moving would be on our workers in Miami.
You were talking to someone who obviously was enthused about his perspective of seeing growth in the Honduran economy.
I'm talking to someone who's paid by U.S. taxpayers' dollars, who's promoting jobs outside of this country at the expense of jobs in this country.
I don't accept that it's at the expense of jobs in this country.
We told him, we come down there, we lose jobs here. We made that very clear. We come to Honduras, we lose jobs in Miami. In essence, he said, come on down.
You're talking to somebody in a country where he's trying to promote economic development. So he might not have a big picture in his conversation with you.
Jim Berg has the big picture and thinks what we uncovered shouldn't be going on. Berg is a top official of another government agency which, like AID, promotes U.S. investment overseas.
If that's what you heard, if that's what you were told, and if that's how you were solicited, that is inconsistent and outside of every government policy that I know about. We can't do that, and we shouldn't do that. The American government has a bond with the American people, and it should not be engaging, if it is, it should not be engaging in activities that hurt this economy.
And former Labor Secretary Marshall says it's not just that we're losing jobs.
I think American wages are being ratcheted down, and I have no doubt at all that these kinds of subsidized job activities tend to drive wages down in the United States.
And that's not supposed to happen because of our own trade laws, which are supposed to protect American workers from unfair labor competition. Laws that require that goods made in Central America can enter the United States virtually duty-free only if certain conditions are met. One condition of these trade benefits is that these countries must recognize basic worker rights.
Internationally recognized workers' rights.
That includes the right to organize,
yes.
the right to bargain collectively.
That's right.
But here's what we found. No less than half a dozen businessmen and officials told the executives of our fictitious company that workers who want to join unions can be fired on the spot and their names placed on blacklists. The manager of this industrial park, financed with U.S. funds, tried to lease us a building with the promise we'd never have to deal with a union.
So we're not going to get people who have a history of labor organizing or that kind of thing.
That's one of our concerns too. You know, we want to have this clean.
If we have somebody who looks like they're going to be a problem as far as a union is concerned, we can tell you about it and you'll take care of it for us?
Yes.
A worker wants to join a union, he or she is fired, and his or her name is put on a blacklist and passed around to the other employers in the zone. they don't get a job. We have that on tape. Is that in violation of those laws?
Well, it sounds very unfortunate. It does not sound to me like anything that ought to happen.
So if an AID official found out about blacklisting in Honduras or El Salvador, what should he do about it?
This would be a subject for typical Foreign Service reporting on labor conditions.
But when we met with the top official of AID in El Salvador, an American named John Sullivan, he assured our executives they shouldn't have a problem with union labor because job applicants are screened by managers of the industrial parks. He put it this way.
There are certain names that we know that you probably will not want to hire.
He told us on tape that managers of the zones will screen out potential workers who might want to join a trade union. That was another reason for us to come to El Salvador. We have that on tape. Now, is that what U.S. officials should be doing?
No.
Why would he do that?
I don't know. You are going to have anti-labor biases on the part of employers.
But should we have anti-labor biases on the part of AID officials?
No. The policy is not to encourage violations of workers' rights.
How can something like that take place if it's not part of official policy or official understanding?
I don't know. That bothers me.
At Congressman George Brown's request, the General Accounting Office is investigating claims that AID has encouraged U.S. businessmen to close down factories here and open up shop overseas. AID wrote us insisting it is not their policy to do that.